EJ, as we approach the holiday season coming in a couple months, I only have one wish. One wish, and that's it. And that's for NFL teams to stop trying to run shovel passes inside the 5-yard line. It is driving me up a wall. Zach Taylor tried it again, other than running literally anything else that has a higher success rate historically inside the 5-yard line. Well, first of all, they tried Philly Special, which didn't work, and then they tried a shuffle pass, which also didn't work. I am at my wit's end with everybody trying to be the Chiefs. There's a reason the Chiefs are the Chiefs, and the Ravens are the Ravens to a degree. I actually went and pulled the stats for it because I'm thinking about doing a film room episode just on this one play, on this shovel option inside the 5, which has taken the league by storm.
Of course you are.
It's maddening. There have been 49 or 50 of them called at this point in the last 2 seasons, going back to the end of 2020, and the Chiefs and Ravens account for over half of the successes. Everybody else, it's abysmal. The success rate is terrible. And everybody keeps trying it, and it never works, and I'm over it. But we'll talk more about that and a lot more on today's show. We have a lot of interesting things to go over for the week that was in week 5. A lot of ups, a lot of downs, a lot of ugly. We have some coach firing news to go over. We have some potential trades and also already done trades to go over. Just a whole lot of things to discuss on today's show, but I won't waste any more time on the intro. EJ, buddy, how you doing? What are you drinking today?
Here I thought you were going to wish for either health after last week, because that seems pretty relevant, or your 2 front teeth, and all you want is shovel passes to end. What are you, anti-fun?
I still have that dry cough, by the way. I'm on 2 solid weeks of this thing, and I still can't quite kick it. Like, I can talk, I can do the show this week. Last week it was terrible, but it's just hanging around, and Mucinex only does so much. I'm over it.
I dove back into Hot Wings, the show. Are you familiar?
Yeah.
Great show, because the interview quality is really high and the questions are great, and I love that. But obviously there's hot sauce involved, and I was rewatching the Trevor Noah one last night. He gets to the end, he's like on sauce number 8 out of 10. For those of you that are unfamiliar, they eat increasingly hot wings and answer questions. Trevor Noah's like, I got that weed cough, man. See,
I still got
I got
too.
you. Yep.
God damn it.
I got you. No, I am fine. I am drinking coffee because we get to do this in the mornings now, which is fantastic. So, non-modified coffee. I do have my shot of the week for a little bit of modified, fun later in the show. But interesting week. Some things that we've been talking about for multiple weeks in 3 Down came to pass. We'll talk about that in our news section, but overall I'm feeling pretty good. It was an entertaining week. There were some really interesting games. They kind of fell into 2 categories, like nail biters and blowouts, and both of them had different and interesting storylines that we'll get into, but a bit more have and have not this week in the NFL.
Well, I think we're starting to see the cream kind of rise to the top a little bit, which usually after the first month of the season, things shake out, and things that seemed like anomalies in the first few weeks all of a sudden become the new norm, like, say, the Broncos offense being bad and the Panthers being historically bad and the Niners being ridiculously good in pretty much all phases. This is when things solidify and kind of become real, and so we are starting to see the elite teams really separate themselves from everybody else. But that being said, why don't we get into news and notes, first segment of the day. Luckily, because we don't do this on Sunday night, we do this on Monday morning, we actually had time for this news to come out, and it did come out first things first on this Monday morning. Matt Rule is the first head coach fired of the year, which he was the heavy favorite going into the year to be the first coach fired, so this isn't that surprising. The offense has just really, under his entire tenure, never come together, regardless of who's been the one calling plays. And the defense, it's been good, but streaky is how I would describe it. So I just think that there was really no saving grace here. There was really no they're almost there. This team looks like it's 3 years away. Just like when they first hired him, when we thought it was 3 years away. They haven't really moved forward at all. They still have some fun, talented pieces, which may or may not get traded away. I'm sure every single fan base in the league is like, gimme, gimme, gimme Brian Burns, but that remains to be seen. I'm sure even Christian McCaffrey might be talked about as somebody who could be traded, because this team is in full-on rebuild mode again and could be looking at a fire sale here. But with Rule specifically, owed more than $40 million left on the contract, which is guaranteed, so he could just not work for the rest of his life and make $40 million. I think it sucks, obviously, to get fired from any job, but hell of a golden parachute there, all things considered. Like, he's doing okay, and he could always go get a job at Nebraska or whatever college program wants to hire him. So Rule is doing fine. His assistants, and my friend Rivers McCown pointed this out on Twitter, his assistants are who I really feel bad for, because they don't have the $40 million contract, and they also are now, on the firing line with him. And most, if not all of them, won't be retained after this year, so they're going to have to, uproot their families and go find new jobs without having tens of millions of dollars in the bank. So usually when a head coach gets fired like this, those are the people you really feel for, because they don't have that same parachute. And I wish all of his assistants the best in trying to land on their feet, because it's a tough thing.
It's not great for the organization. Mid-season firings are incredibly rough. They don't have great success rates. The interim NFL head coach, I think, is one of the hardest positions in all of sports, because you are inheriting a franchise, obviously, that was underperforming, wildly underperforming. That's the only reason to fire a coach in season. And even then, it's a tough thing to do, because the chances that you will see a turnaround, the chances that what happened with the Raiders last year with Rich Bisaccia are incredibly low. They're kind of like shovel passes in Kansas City. Like, it's only going to happen once out of 10 or 15 times. The other 10 or 15 times, you're going to limp to the finish. You might see fits and starts. That coach has very little chance of being retained statistically. All the players are fighting for their jobs, and there's not certainty about the direction of the franchise, like you said. And there is this, do we go, do we not go? Now, I think Carolina's farther along than most people think they are. I think they have wildly underperformed, and that comes down to coaching, and that is a reason to fire your coach. Don't think we're necessarily going to see the turnaround, but already on social media, as will happen when this happens, people are talking about what ifs. And the what if of, I don't know, Bryce Young, Sean Payton, and insert X 2 or 3 other players here, that team could look a whole lot better than they have. Are they going to be beating the world? No. Are they going to be a threat to win every week with Sean Payton, a real quarterback, and, a few tweaks? They could be. The defense is stacked. The offense has enough playmakers to compete, not necessarily to just sweep people. So you can turn it around pretty quickly in the NFL. Will they? That's a whole nother question. And in the interim, Steve Wilks gets to take this team forward. John Ellis, who's hooked in with the Panthers beat, made a really good point that, Wilks is a not a Panthers lifer, but a legacy guy. He was there before with Ron Rivera, and he understands the team and the fan base and everything else. But, his chances to be the next head coach, everybody would like that to happen. Wilks seems like a very solid guy. It's not likely. So it's going to be continuing rough seas for Carolina. I don't think they're 3 years away by any stretch, but if they go on a fire sale and say, no, we're going to clean it down to the studs, they might be. And that's one approach. We'll have to wait and see how this goes. There's a lot going on. I'm glad Rule is gone. He was definitely the thumb on the head of this organization. Firing Joe Brady should have been a sign, right? Yeah. Because he didn't like the run-pass balance. That seemed really weak, and they've done only worse since. So a little bit of this is a lot of this is self-inflicted, and we'll see if they can't get it turned around.
I think in terms of leading candidates for the job, D'Amico Ryan's the man who just beat the tar out of them, is first in line. At least if I was making the hire, he'd be first in line. The question is whether D'Amico Ryans would want that job, knowing that the quarterback position is so unsettled. They don't have that much draft capital. And if they want to get more draft capital to go after a quarterback, they're going to have to get rid of Brian Burns probably to get another first-round pick. They're going to have to potentially deal Christian McCaffrey to try to get like a third or a fourth round pick just to give themselves ammo. So this is going to be another tear it down to the stud. Well, not completely down to the studs. Tear it down to the insulation, so to speak, type thing. And it's, D'Amico Ryans with his first head coaching opportunity. Is that what he wants to do? Or
we talked about this on the live stream. Literally on the Thursday live stream, we talked about this very possibility. We said, if he leaves, who would you say? And I said Ryans, and you said the same thing. I said Ryans because of the fit with the defense, but you said, ownership, quarterback. I'm not sure that if I'm D'Amico Ryans, the leading candidate probably for most jobs this next offseason, do I pick that as my first head coaching landing spot? And it's a legitimate question. We'll have to see. Teams without quarterbacks, man, you got to hit on the quarterback. Everybody knows this. We talk about this all the time. It's the most important decision, and the hit rate ain't great. So, head coaching opportunity, cool. If it's your only one, take a look. If you have multiples and there is an established quarterback at another spot where a head coach moves, the attractiveness goes way up.
Yeah, it's always something to keep in mind is, especially, not to completely take this discussion off track, with how few opportunities black head coaching candidates get, they have to be selective with the job they take because they might not get a second chance. Like Todd Bowles getting his second chance was a rarity. And so when D'Amico Ryans eventually gets the job, which he's been talked about as a head coaching candidate for 4 years now, when he eventually gets that job, he has to choose the best possible situation because unfortunately, based on historical trends of opportunities that black head coaching candidates get, he might not get another one. So
yeah, he'll be fired. Statistically, he'll be fired more quickly, and the chance that he gets a repeat opportunity are much lower than his non-black peers.
Like for me, he's already a Texans legend. Bring him back to Houston. I would love that. Yeah. I would absolutely love that. But, I'm a Texans fan, so we don't get to have nice things. Anyway, second little bit of news here. Falcons dealt Deion Jones to the Browns. They got a 2024 7th-round pick, and Falcons also got back, they sent a 2024 7th along with Deion Jones and got back a 2024 6th-round pick. Browns lost Anthony Walker a couple weeks ago, and then Barry wanted to bring in somebody that could help shore up their depth. The fall off, I would say, for Deion Jones, for what he was a few years ago, which was, a lot of people saw him as like a top 5-6 linebacker in the league, to now, quote unquote, only being worth a middle of day 3 pick 2 drafts from now, which is the equivalent of nothing. Like that's a we want him off the books deal. Like please take him from us for whatever. The fall off of Deion Jones is what I find most fascinating because that's probably the price he was worth at this point. Like he was not playing well for the last couple of years. And I don't know what happened because for a long time he was seen as like the future of the position. He was seen as, like the modern, lighter, rangy linebacker that could cover and, make plays out in space, and he could rush the pass. Like he did everything. He was JOK before JOK. In fact, I compared JOK to him when JOK was coming out. And now he's this. And I truly don't know what happened, but it just fascinates me.
Deion Jones is a player that I bring up fairly often because he is one of the guys in the draft that made me go back and change my opinions. When he was coming out, I liked his game, loved his activity, loved his instincts, and I was like, look, this guy plays under 220 regularly. That just doesn't fly anymore. Deion Jones came out, got drafted, put up 100 tackles, took the league by storm, and I had to go back and say, maybe that shift has occurred, right? I think it has. There's evidence that shift has occurred. And Deion Jones was that guy for me. I had to go back and say, I'm not going to undervalue linebackers that play under 220 if they look like Deion Jones and have that range, those skills, because the old take on the pulling guard bit isn't as important in the modern NFL, and he was one of those sort of watershed moments for me. This comes back to, in terms of what we think happened, fit, right? He does not fit in Arthur Smith's plan for that defense. And that's a weird thing to say because Arthur Smith was hired as offensive head coach. But Arthur Smith and his staff in Atlanta, Deion Jones was not a fit. As soon as they came in, he dropped completely off a cliff. Now, is that the player dropping off a cliff, or is it mesh with the system? Could be a little bit of both. Linebacker is a high wear position, just like running back. But this has more to do with fit. If you look at the precipitous drop in Jones's play, it's with Smith's arrival, Smith and his staff's arrival. So that's one side of it for the sort of postmortem what happened in Atlanta. The other one that's more interesting to me, because this is a buy low situation, obviously, what you said, the compensation is roughly a ham sandwich that traded, hands between these two teams, is, and we said this when Walker went down, we were watching that game, and we said, "Oh, that's a bad one." Like people don't understand what he means to that team outside of probably the Cleveland fan base. He's kind of a cog. He's a guy they lean on to do a lot of things. And I really think this is Andrew Berry saying, "Nope, we're not just happy to be here with Jacoby Brissett. We're going to stay loaded. We're going to be active before the deadline. We're going to go out and get more players. We think we're in a position to make a run." The Browns have played really well. Jacoby Brissett has played, I would say, above pretty much all expectation. And this, to me, is the indication. This is the interesting part of this trade, is Andrew Berry going, no, we're not out. We're in. Like, we're going to – it's not a ton of risk, but we're going to spend. We're going to get guys that we could buy low on that we think will fit. Obviously, you mentioned JOK. JOK is there. They've drafted other linebackers like Tony Fields Jr., who also
when Austin Eckler puts up 200 yards on you really that I think honestly yesterday's game was when Barry was like, I can't fucking do this another
That's
week.
it.
Like,
yeah, we miss
linebacker.
Walker, and they miss him. But this is them sort of pushing more chips into the middle of the table, which obviously they've done in many ways. We've talked about that preseason. That's the interesting part to me here, is the Browns are like, no, we see opportunity not only within this team, but within our division, which is the path to the playoffs. Like, we're going to go all in to replace Walker. It doesn't seem like from a compensation standpoint, but again, what you can get midseason, this is a decently sized swing for the Browns. The risk is low, but it indicates that they've got their foot on the gas and they want to keep it that way.
Third note in this segment, and last note in this segment, Tom Brady became the first player, and in all likelihood will be the only player ever in NFL history to surpass 100,000 career yards, which is a record that I didn't even think would be possible. We see quarterbacks these days celebrate and get moments paused in the game when they get like to 50,000. Because they've been playing for 10 years or 12 years or 15 years or whatever, and they finally get to 50,000. Brady doubled that. It's just absurd. It's crazy. And there's maybe two other quarterbacks alive today that, if they can play for 20 years, might catch that. And it's Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. But other than that, like, I don't think anybody's ever even going to get close to this record. It's nuts.
Yeah, we were at week one, Bills Rams, and Stafford hits the mark and they pause, throw the big thing up on the video board. We were both like, this is really cool. This is an NFL moment that we sort of weren't paying attention to, weren't expecting, and we're here. We got to see it live. That's really awesome. It's half. It's 50%. People argue all the time, oh, Brady's not the best quarterback ever. And I'm like, what? In what world is that not the case? You can say you like him or hate him. You can say, and people do, everything about his personal life, about the teams he played on, whether or not they cheated. You can say all of that stuff. But when you go and you look at the records and all the other quarterbacks that you love that were on your team, the Youngs and Montanas, and insert quarterback X here. Doesn't matter. Whichever quarterback you love. And then you look at Brady, and they're all down here, and Brady is up here, and there's this big air gap between them. I don't care whether it's playoff appearances, playoff wins, Super Bowl appearances, Super Bowl wins, yards, completions. You can cherry pick almost any stat, and Brady's at the top of it. And he's not just a grinder, right? He is a grinder, absolutely, to have played this long. but it's also grind with quality, and that's what makes these records pretty unassailable. Like, there is a slim to none chance that somebody's going to go after this thing, because that combination of nose to the grindstone in a just absolutely sort of psychotic way and the skill to go with it, it doesn't come along. Never has. Brady's the first, and possibly the last. If anybody even sniffs this record, it'll be a huge credit to them, because 100K is, Stafford's had very productive years. He had him in Detroit. He obviously had a very good year in LA last year. He just got to 50,000, and his elbow's breaking down, and he's broken his base, played with a broken back. Another double that, just take that career and double it. I don't think so. So
also, by the way, a little point of clarification, because I forgot to mention off the top. This is regular and postseason combined. 85,000 of it is regular season. 15,000 of it was postseason. And so I know some people were like, he didn't get to 100. He did, but you have to combine everything. He's the first to ever get 100,000 combined. The note that I forgot to mention. So that 15,000 just postseason yardage, right? That is the equivalent yardage right now of the entirety of Josh Allen's 4.5-year career so far. So take all of Josh Allen, everything he's ever done in the NFL, that is just Tom Brady in the month of January. So, yeah, it's crazy. We're never going to see it again. Yeah. Two more things, actually, in news and notes. I lied. I forgot we had these as well. Number one, we're welcoming a new executive producer to Bootleg over the executive producer tier over on Patreon. That is Taylor. Thank you, Taylor, for stepping up and supporting us. We really, really appreciate you. We're going to thank you again at the end of the show, but wanted to put that at the top. Taylor, you're a fucking legend. And then number two, we are going to be in Buffalo in 17 days from the time we record this. We're going to be on or at the Sunday night game between the Packers and the Bills, speaking of Josh Allen. And we're going to be in Buffalo for 4 or 5 days. EJ obviously has a lot of family up there. I'm going to be up there eating as many wings as humanly possible and saying hi to as many of our Western New Yorker fans as I possibly can. So if you're going to be at that game or around that game on October 30th, Packers-Bills, please let us know down in the comments below. We'll link up. We'll grab a beer. We'll do something.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward. Fall's my favorite time to go to upstate New York, having grown up there. The game is amazing. This came about as sort of a whim. We were talking about it with the Rock Pile Report guys. Maybe it'll happen. And then we ran into a friend of mine down in Texas who I'd forgotten was a Packers fan, who I grew up with in New York. And he's like, if you go, I'll go. And I was like, we should do this. And we got tickets. We're going to make it happen. Like Brett said, we are going to be there for multiple number of days. So more details to come on all that, but we wanted to let everybody know it is happening. We do have our tickets. We'll let folks know where to show up, hang out, say hi, and just enjoy what should be a great football game. If everybody stays healthy, come on, you're looking at Rodgers versus Allen and a Bills team that we'll talk about a bit later on in the show that is just mashing people. So looks to be like it's going to be a really great time all the way around.
All right, let's get to that Thursday night game, which if you joined us for our Thursday night live stream, where we had to basically vamp for 2 hours straight because, good God, nothing was happening. That was one of the worst football games I've ever seen in my life, and I want to thank you, Prize Picks, for paying us to watch it, because I don't know if I would have unless we were being paid to. But, EJ, because I'm me, even through that shit show of a game, I still hit 4 out of 5 on my slip. I hit the over on Matt Ryan. I hit the over on Alec Pierce. I hit the over on Russell Wilson. I hit the over on Cortland Sutton. I might have hit the over on Nyheim Hines if, unfortunately, he didn't get hurt on his first touch of the game. Now, it took 5 quarters to do it, but it's okay. Overs are overs. What I want to talk specifically about that game, though, is the sheer difficulty of the Broncos offense. And I don't mean difficulty in terms of they're asking Russ to do too much, or, difficulty in terms of play calling verbiage or anything like that. The difficulty in the sense of how hard they make it on themselves. Because, Just to hit a 230-yard over on Russell Wilson and a 65-yard over on Cortland Sutton, it was a fucking slog. Because the receivers, Jerry Jeudy especially, making mistake after mistake, like just in terms of, catch technique, like trying to underhand something that was above his shoulder pads when you should be going for the diamond, not understanding that a safety can speed turn over the top of you and he's trying to basket catch something deep down the field rather than jumping and trying to meet the ball at its highest point at the catch point and winning on a jump ball. He just trusted that he was going to separate. And it's like, nah, dude, safeties in the NFL are pretty fucking fast too. Like you're going to have to actually compete for the ball. There were other crucial drops. Like Cortland Sutton was not immune from mistakes as well. The receivers make it so damn hard on Russ sometimes. Not that Russ is playing well, but he's playing better than what the box score says because this receiving core has vastly underperformed relative to their talent level. They really miss Tim Patrick. They're struggling to run the ball. Like the Javonte Williams injury, just because he was able to break so many tackles even when things weren't well blocked. The Javonte Williams injury has really hurt them. The fumbles from Melvin Gordon have hurt them. Like this offense just it doesn't work, and it's not just a design thing. It's not just a play calling thing. It's the fact that the players, even around their quarterback, are not making things easy on him. And it's going to be even worse because now you're out your left tackle. In fact, now you're out 40% of your starting offensive line, and you're out your best running back, and you're out your best jump ball receiver. They're almost too thin to make me think that they can get out of this death spiral, because at least based on the first 5-week sample, none of them are playing well. Like just none of them are playing well. I don't know what to say about it.
Well, we need to say what we're saying about it, which is this isn't just growing pains. This isn't just adjustment between a new quarterback and a new coaching staff which has already been bolstered, right? They already added a coach in week 3, which is a rare step for especially a new NFL coaching staff, for the organization to say, hey, we're going to hire somebody else to help you because it looks like you need some help. And, truth be told, they'll never say it, but there's some panic going on behind the scenes with the Broncos. With the amount of investment and the way Russell Wilson has played, yes, the team around him, it is a team sport. You mentioned Tim Patrick was a big one early on. Bowles going out in this game with a broken leg, not good, like really, really bad. But even so, if you add all that together, Wilson's had some down roster years with the Hawks where he's been able to elevate the team. Instead, seems like the opposite's happening. Like he's dropping further off the cliff. So he's not helping. They're not helping him. This isn't an offense that's like close. That's like one thing away. It's like multiple bad things on every play from really making anything look easy or competent. And for those of you that would argue, even Broncos fans, this is the one that just pushed me over the edge. Brock Osweiler, Trevor Siemian, and Drew Lock, Broncos legends.
Yeah, okay.
All had more touchdowns, a better touchdown to interception ratio, better completion percentage, and a higher QB rating through 5 weeks than Russell Wilson did. All of them did. All of them had all of those stats.
Too.
Right. All of them. Osweiler, Siemian, and Locke all had all of those stats better than Russell Wilson through 5 weeks. So at that point, you can't really go, oh, it's just no, it's not just anything. It's an issue. It's going to be hard to come back from, especially with all the injuries. And Hackett, for the most part, again, it's very early, hasn't shown the ability to adapt and switch. We're going to talk about a coach that's got a somewhat depressed roster who's making things happen. That is, I think, evidence of really solid coaching, saying, what do we really have? What can we really do? Hackett hasn't shown that so far. So the Broncos, it was a terrible game. Yeah, we had to vamp through the whole thing. And yeah, many people said it was the worst NFL game ever, or at least it was in the running. And when you've played as many games as they have in the NFL, that's a thing. But I have to agree with them. I've watched a lot of NFL games. It's in the running. It was a terrible, terrible football game. You got OT, got lucky on your slip. Woohoo! Some silver lining out of the whole thing. That's great. But if you're a Broncos fan, this is tough because you can't just – this isn't a one-year gig. You can't just take Russell Wilson and jettison him. He's got $100 million in dead money, $100 million plus in dead money next year. So this isn't a like, oh, well, we'll just do this with Russ and then we'll be fine. No, you're committed. This is the gig for at least this year and next year. And looking at the gig so far, that's got to be an item of concern.
The fact that this team lost to the Colts, who we are going to talk about later in the show, they lost to the Colts, which might be the worst 500 football team I've ever seen in the month of October. Like, this is not a good football team. And Matt Ryan looks cooked, who again we'll
talk
dedicate
about that.
Ample time to.
Yeah,
they still lost to them. That's how dire straits they're in right now. So I don't personally see a quick way. There is a way out, but it's multiple layers. I don't see a quick way out of this death spiral unless every single receiver like just gets their shit together at the same time, because all the receivers are having problems. Russ's shoulder lat strain of course you knew that report was coming out after that game. It's like, oh, he's been playing with it, but he's tough. He's going to gut through it. It's like, okay, sure. I'm not denying its existence, but I am just, I think it's
you might be denying its importance.
It's just funny how that report always comes out, after. And that's not just Russ. Any like star quarterback,
right?
They have a rough stretch, and it's like, oh, but he's hurt, and it's like, okay.
It's the we gotta say something press release, right?
Yeah.
We cannot just say, wow, he was just flat awful. Like every NFL player plays with, I don't even want to call them nicks and dings, plays with injuries. Let's just call them what they are. From fairly minor stuff that you or I could probably walk through. They don't even talk about those because they all have those. But then things that you or I probably couldn't walk through, and they play with that stuff. They go between the white lines and put themselves out there. So, you could have a list every week, but you nailed it. It's like clockwork. After one of these, you're going to hear about whatever's on that player's list, regardless of whether you would have, if they'd won, they wouldn't have said anything about it. Not a thing. But instead, it's a big press release. Hey, Russ went and saw a doctor. He got a shot, and it was just like X's shot because X's injury was really bad. So just keep that in mind. It's not as bad as it looks, right? Don't look behind the curtain. It's not as bad as it looks.
And just the tweets that came out from reporters, and I know this is just how the reporting game works. That's why we're not in the news business. The lines they put out of like, oh, it's a tough injury and it's going to be painful, but he's going to play through it. And it's like, that's what his agent is saying.
It's hedging.
Yes.
That's what it is. It's hedging by the team. It's hedging by the player. Now, Russ probably didn't have anything to do with that tweet coming out. The team probably said, the team and the agent said, we need to do some damage control. This will help, right? And that's what it is. It came out. I'm not happy that he has to play through an injury. I'm not happy he's playing like this. We wanted to see the Broncos at full throat, right? We wanted to see them at 100% and firing with all those weapons because we thought that was going to be damn cool. And so far, kind of the opposite.
But you know what a strained lat doesn't do? It doesn't make you misread man coverage on the goal line and completely miss KJ Hamler wide open on the rub. Like, having an injured shoulder doesn't make you completely fuck up a read like that.
All right, we should move on to greener pastures because there's a lot of them, and there's some good stuff that happened in the NFL this week, despite the way we've sounded for the first third of the podcast.
We will get to 3 up. Just a reminder, stop by the live stream this Thursday for a game that it can't possibly be any worse between the Commanders and the Bears. We're going to be doing another slip, which traditionally I'll at least hit 4 out of 5 if you want to tail it and make some money. You can use promo code BOOTLEG over at our partners over at Prize Picks. They'll match your deposit up to $100. So if you want to come by and drink with us and watch a terrible football game and hopefully get paid to do it, stop on by this Thursday, half hour before kickoff. We'll get you going through that. But like EJ said, let's get to 3 up. Up number 1, EJ, the Jets and all of their young talent actually look pretty good. And, we kind of expected this to eventually happen because we've loved all their draft classes for the last, 3 years or whatever, however long Joe Douglas has been there. But we're finally starting to see it pay off a little bit. And I don't want to use the excuse of, the Dolphins are banged up and they're down to Skylar Thompson at quarterback. Like, even if Tua was in, I still think the Jets would have won this game because of all of their young dynamic pieces and how many great plays they were making. Sauce Gardner looks phenomenal. His interception, in particular his footwork on his interception, was just crazy. Like, guys his size should not be able to transition that quickly and get downhill that quickly. He's just a special talent. Breece Hall had his big breakout game, 197 total yards. Should have had another goal line touchdown. He did score, but he should have had another one, but he got dragged down at the 1. So Michael Carter vultured him, which is personally great for my fantasy team, but hey, I'm sure Breece Hall owners are pretty upset. And the Jets' defensive line and a lot of the talent they've accumulated there. Quinnen Williams has been an absolute force. John Franklin Myers has been incredible. Carl Lawson coming off, his devastating injury, or his third devastating injury of his career, still a bull in a china shop. They just all were phenomenal. They had 24 pressures, or at least got pressure on 24 different dropbacks. They had 13 quarterback hits. Lawson had 7 of those quarterback hits. Just every single phase of the game, all of the talent they've accumulated finally making plays. And this is the structure, and this is the final result that Joe Douglas wanted, which is you give me enough swings, I'll get the stars, and then Zach Wilson doesn't have to do everything, and the rest of the team can kind of help him out. One quick thing, and then we'll get right back to the show. A lot of you guys listening, just like us, are longtime Manscaped users. There's 6 million men in this country that use Manscaped, and a lot of which watch this show. And because the Venn diagram of our audiences is basically a circle at this point, Manscaped wants you all to know that they've released the 4.0 version of the Perfect Package. I've used them since all the way back at 1.0 when they weren't even sold in stores yet, so I personally know how far they've come. And inside the new and improved Perfect Package, you've still got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which of course has ceramic blades, skin-safe technology to kind of reduce nicks and cuts, a 7,000 RPM motor, an LED spotlight, and it's waterproof. There's also the Weed Whacker for ear and nose hair trimming, and it also comes with the Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant and Crop Reviver. Plus, there's Manscaped boxers and a travel bag as free gifts included in the package. If you want to try out the Perfect Package for yourself to cover all of your different grooming needs, you can get a 20% off discount plus free shipping with code BOOTLEG at manscaped.com. Again, that is 20% off plus free shipping with promo code BOOTLEG at manscaped.com. Thank you to Manscaped for partnering with us once again, and with that, let's get back to the show.
This was the week. Jets fans, this was the week. We've been talking about this for honestly 2.5 years, and I'm actually going to link this back to the Bears, but we'll do that at the end.
What, EJ linking something to the Bears? Never.
It's weird, right? So strange. By the way, that completes your parlay at home, so you can go collect your winnings. Look, this is the team that Douglas has been assembling for the last 2.5 years, right? This is the team. This is what they thought. This is their blueprint. Now, 2 weeks ago, on this very podcast, we said, Sal's got to get it done. And he's a guy that we think and have thought can get it done, but he's got to get it done. Like, this is crunch time. He has all the players now. We said this in our preseason look at the Jets. They've got everything they need. If it doesn't work, there's going to have to be some soul searching about why, because this is well enough to win, even in a very tough division. Mm-hmm. But you got to do it. There's always pressure in the NFL. Always. Every week, every game. They're hard to win. But when you're the Jets and you have made the transition and you have brought in all the pieces and they're all here now, like you've had multiple draft hauls that we really like. Offense looks good. Defense looks good. Your quarterback, your star quarterback is now back and healthy. Like at some point, and Saleh even said this to his team last week, he put even more pressure on him. He said, like, the good enough and the competing, it's not good enough. We're going to beat some teams. We have to beat some teams. And quite frankly, you got to beat the good teams in your division. At some point, that bill comes due. And if they hadn't, there would have been some serious questions. They did in, like, round fashion. Like, they put up a lot of points, over 40. Their defense was ridiculous. Lawson, a sack, a forced fumble, 7 hits. Gardner, look, everybody knows I'm a Sauce stan. He was my CB1. I said he was that guy. I said he was going to be like Darrelle Revis before the Jets drafted him. He had a 34.2 passer rating and coverage in week 5. That's less than if the quarterback threw an incompletion on every target. So it's worse to throw at him than to just throw it at the ground. Right? He is that guy. This is it. This is what Jets fans have been waiting for, and they did it. They delivered. Now, you can have all that talent. You can have the coaching. You can have the investment from ownership and the GM that knows what the hell he's doing. If you don't beat the tough teams in your division, none of that shit matters. Mm-hmm. And for once, the Jets laid it down, and they laid the Dolphins down. I'm with you. Even if Tua was in this game, it would have been closer, for sure. Skylar Thompson, good player, but, rookie player making his first start. Tua would have made it closer. I still think the Jets win the game because they were all over the place on both sides of the ball.
At minimum, they are absolutely in the driver's seat for like a 6 or a 7 seed type run here. They just need to keep rattling off in-conference wins. Zach Wilson needs to keep playing well. The run game needs to keep doing what it's doing. Just the fact that they're even in this position when they're on like OT6. It's just unbelievable, and resounding golf claps for the Jets staff for getting them through everything they've been through and still being in this spot. I already consider this season to be a successful one because they shouldn't be in this position.
And they get Dwayne Brown, and he's gonna be that veteran tackle out of left field that comes in, and he played this week for the first time for them. He's gonna settle in, hopefully stay healthy. Like that. That's a huge boost for them. But it wasn't just one thing. It wasn't like, oh, Dwayne Brown came in and they ran the ball well, and so now maybe they have a chance. Like Zach Wilson needed to stay in the pocket and play well within the offense, which he did last week. All the pieces coming together. The defense needs to get pass rush and cover. They did both. Lajavir Tucker has moved positions, played really well, quote unquote out of position. Like it's all the things. And it seemed like for a long time, look, the Jets were just kind of snake bitten. All the things would happen the wrong way, right? Wilson's injury and people not playing up to potential and just bad breaks. And you never really got to see it go. Right, and on Sunday it felt like really the scale tipped and all the things went. The offense went, the defense went. Robert Saleh was fired up. He hasn't lost this team by any stretch, but these are the types of games that when you say the week before, like, hey, we can't just keep up. We got to beat people, and then you don't, like the whispers start from the corners of the locker room like, man, he's been saying that for like 2 years and we've never done it, as opposed to we stomped folks that people are really excited about in our division. We did it resoundingly. We got to do it at home, which was really cool. And everything worked. That is infectious. Like that makes a team go. And so you can say it all you want, but you got to do it. And the Jets did it and did it over the top. And that I'm just really happy for them because they are, if you want to talk about long suffering, Jets fans fit the description.
One more note on this game. I don't want to drag on too long in the Jets because we have sung their praises a lot. I want this to be an example for other fan bases to realize that sometimes things just take time, like multiple years. Like when we say multi-year rebuild, how many times have we seen a franchise say, oh, it's going to be a multi-year rebuild, and then we don't actually give them multiple years to do it? This is what happens when you actually let that multi-year rebuild happen.
Huh. Weird that. Therein lies the Bears tie-in. Everybody knew that Ryan Poles was coming into a situation that Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy had screwed up in a big way. It's not unlike the situation that Joe Shane and Brian Dable came into with the Giants. Like, things are bad, right? We have multiple things. We're not going to fix them all. If people had, and people did, look, it's the New York market. If people had said the same thing about Joe Douglas and said, he hasn't fixed it in 6 months, sweep him out of here. He hasn't fixed it in 1 year. It's been a year and a half. Get him gone. You wouldn't have gotten to see Sunday. Period. End of story. So, folks in Chicago, other folks in New York City who root for the Giants, not for the Jets. This is what has to happen. When your team is far enough down, you need multiple swings, multiple bites at the apple, whatever it is. One draft, one free agency period, one season is not going to do it. You're farther down the ladder than that. So you put some pieces in place, which Joe Douglas did in the first year. The next year you put more pieces in place. You have to see some improvement. But even if they'd only given him 2 years, you still wouldn't have gotten to see Sunday. And seeing Sunday is the goal, because seeing Sunday looks repeatable for the Jets. It was not a fluke. Like, they put their foot on the neck of the Dolphins and said, ours, thanks, bye, go home with an L. That's what you want to be able to do in the NFL, but it's not going to happen for teams that are that far down in 6 months or a year or sometimes even a year and a half. And patience is an extremely limited commodity. I get that, but that's what it takes. So look at the Jets model and say, this is what's possible. Need to give my team, coach, front office staff a little bit of breathing room, as long as they continue, like Joe Douglas did, to stack drafts, to make smart decisions in free agency, and set that team up. It's not guaranteed that they'll take off from there, but there isn't even going to be a fuse to light if you don't give them that time.
Yeah, and I think it's a very different situation than, say, the Panthers, who I think hired Rule around the same time. But
yeah,
they also weren't handling the rebuild the same way the Jets were. They weren't stacking, or not even that. Like, they took a corner in the top 10 when they were a quarterback needy team.
The other thing is, Saleh is not Matt Rule. Like, Robert Saleh, we had a lot of faith in as a leader, as a guy to hold the course, as a guy to bring modern, relatable NFL concepts that can win. Rule, we hoped, but not the same thing. And he ends up out in Carolina. The Jets, on the other hand, are looking to, build on a strong Sunday and build towards the end of the year, compete for a playoff spot, which is exactly what you want your team to be able to do. And if they do that because of the foundation and because of the way they built, because of the decisions they've made in free agency, it looks sustainable. It looks like they can keep that role going as long as they keep Zach Wilson healthy. And, you can say that for any team. But they've done it the right way. That looks like it could lead to sort of the ultimate holy grail in the Jets organization, which is sustained success.
All right, keeping it with the other New York team that we mentioned a little bit. 3 up number 2, the Giants taking down the Packers in London. And I will say this game kind of started out like you would expect a Giants-Packers game to go. They couldn't get out of their way. Like, they were dropping screens. They were killing their own drives. Rodgers was very efficient moving the ball, not necessarily getting chunk plays, but, seeing the field like only Rodgers does and throwing these little flare screens that get easy first downs for them at will. And, the running game is doing well. And they put up like 3 scoring drives in a row. And it started to look like, okay, this game's going to be like 35-17, kind of how we expected it to go. And then Big Blue came alive. And you started to see Brian Dable dip into the bag of tricks a little bit. Saquon, they ripped off a huge gain on a pin and pull with Saquon at the Wildcat position to kind of get him going. Pass protection improved wildly, even just during the course of this game. Like, Rashawn Gary and all them kind of got them a couple times early. And then all of a sudden, the offensive line started playing extremely well. Andrew Thomas is playing like a man possessed this year. He looks like an elite left tackle. And they really kept Daniel Jones upright. And when Daniel Jones is upright and not having people breathe down his neck, he's actually a pretty capable quarterback. Not like amazing, but definitely capable. And this Giants offensive line only allowed 9 pressures all game after allowing a couple early, which by their standards is like positively amazing, especially compared to a couple weeks ago, week 3, where, they allowed like 35, so this was a phenomenal performance by the Giants offensive line. The play action game was really effective. The quick passing game was really effective. Daniel was just able to stay in rhythm and not constantly having to run for his life. He was able to distribute the ball, and they just kept putting up points. And then whenever they needed a big play, it was Saquon and Wildcat, or down in the red zone, like, hey, we need to get a lead here. Saquon again, Wildcat, get us those points. Or driving down late, we need a big chunk. Okay, we're going to put Saquon out as a wide receiver and get him on the move on like a clear out where he's run the shallow underneath, and then he just has to go put a move on somebody and get a big chunk. He did that as well. So I just think that this was a phenomenally well coached game by Brian Daboll to get chunks with his best player when he needed chunks, kept his quarterback upright, no turnovers, 55% third down conversions. If you're doing all of that, you're going to win, even against a team like the Packers and even against a guy like Aaron Rodgers. You're going to win if you do that. And I think if they can sustain that formula, this is going to be a much tougher out than people think.
I love the flexibility and the resilience. So the flexibility part is really important. This is Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka being objective about what they have in Daniel Jones. And I saw people say yesterday, Brian Daboll runs, Daniel Jones like he doesn't care about him. And I'm like, no, he cares about winning. And I think he probably knows that Daniel Jones, as he is, as a passer, is not probably the long-term future of the Giants. He's not worried about the long-term future of the Giants right now. He and Mike Kafka are whipping up a plan saying, what do we have? We have an all-world running back who's finally healthy again. We should use him a lot. Like, we shouldn't go away from him and have those games where he has like 6 touches. That's on us. We need to make sure he's involved. That's sort of NFL 101. The NFL 201 is, what do we have at the quarterback position? Should we be asking Daniel Jones to do something that he clearly can't after multiple seasons? We need to jack up the protection because we know if our quarterback doesn't get protected, he's among the worst in the league. So we can't have that. Like, offensive line, that's on you. You got to make a clamshell around this guy, and then we're going to tell him to do one of 2 things, which is take a couple of, 1-2 reads, distribute the ball as he can brilliantly when he's got the space. He's always been that guy. Or take off, right? And this entire offense is built around boot, right? This looks a lot like the plan that Matt Nagy had in year 1 for Trubisky, which was, I'm going to move him, and I'm going to ask him to do 1 or 2 reads, and then if not, I'm going to ask him to use his athleticism. And he has, turned the dial on Daniel Jones' athleticism. We saw Daniel Jones even last year have an 80-yard run down the middle of the field. He's a very good athlete. He's a big guy. And they're saying, get out on the edge, and if it's not there, take off and run because you can pick up 6 or 7, and that's going to put us in positive. It's going to keep the chains moving. We're going to stay ahead of the sticks, and we can win from there because we can dial up some wildcat for Saquon. We can throw him short swing passes and have him go get stuff. Darius Slayton, who's been, completely off the radar, comes in 6 catches, 79 yards. Every time he turned around, he had a chain-moving catch. That's 13-2. That's not an exceptional down-the-field thing. But you don't want Daniel Jones standing in for 5 seconds trying to launch 45-yard bombs to Slayton. You're like, no.
He won't live through that.
Right. You're like, what do we have? And that's what I love about Daboll and Kafka is they've got this team and they're very honest about what they have and what they don't have. And they're just maximizing it. They're pushing all the sliders to 10 in the categories they have. And all the categories that other coaches have tried to say, well, you should get better at, they're just dialing those back to 2 or 3. They're limiting their liabilities. They're pushing their strengths, and the players are buying in. This Giants team would have folded in years past. Aaron Rodgers goes up by a couple of scores. Could have been 10 points. This Giants team would have folded in years past. This Giants team, still knowing they're outgunned at the quarterback position, was like, nah, we're not giving you anything. We're going to keep coming at you. We're going to make it hard for you. That frustrates players like Rodgers, like Tom Brady. We got to see them both be frustrated on Sunday by opponents that were like, we're going to keep coming. We're going to give you a game. Rodgers was clearly frustrated at the end of the game, dejected even. And that's a measure of how much these players, we saw it in the first couple of weeks, how much they're buying into Daboll, how much they're celebrating with him on the sideline when something goes their way that they didn't believe could go their way or is just sort of against the NFL script. And Daboll's like, I don't care. This is what I've got. Well, Daboll and Kafka both are like, this is what I've got. This is how I'm going to use it, and watch, it's going to work, and it's working, and they're buying in, and they're getting what I would call unlikely wins, but they're earning them.
I also want to talk about the coaching that Wink Martindale did at the end of the game, and there was much talk about the 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2 with the game on the line, and okay, why aren't you running the ball and you're throwing fades? Which, to be fair, even I was like, I don't know about throwing a fade when you're +2 off the edge. Like, it's a lot of hands to throw to. But the aspect that I couldn't really talk about that on Twitter, because Twitter, you can't tweet long enough.
Because there's no
really
nuance on Twitter.
There's no nuance on Twitter. Yeah. If you go back and watch those two plays, Giants were in 0. So for the why aren't they running the ball crowd, you have A.J. Dillon on 3rd and 2. They called 0, which is we are going to bring more bodies than you can block mathematically. They called 0 so that you couldn't run the ball. Like, they wanted to take that option completely off the table, which is you cannot block all of us. Don't run the ball. And so they forced the Packers into their Rolodex of here's all our passing play answers for 0 in short yardage. And they just trusted their DBs to know, like, hey, they're not running, they're throwing, you got to be ready for this. And everybody who's actually rushing in the defensive front, they're not running, they're throwing, get your fucking hands up, because you know what they're going to be doing whenever they see this look in the red zone, which is throwing and throwing quickly. So don't even try to get the sack. Just put pressure on the offensive line and then jump, extend your hands, and just, make it so he has to throw through a forest. And they did that twice in a row. They knew they weren't going to get home. They just had to dictate the play call by saying, you can't run, we're in 0, and then understand that all they have to do is just get their hands up. Did it twice in a row. It worked. They walked out with the W. I thought it was phenomenal coaching by Wink to not let the situation be dictated to him and instead be the one dictating, which is his philosophy in general. He's always a blitz happy guy. But that's why some defensive coordinators like to be blitz happy, is they're like, I'm not going to let you tell me what I'm doing. I'm going to tell you what you're doing. And at least this week it worked.
Yeah, there's one other thing I want to bring up in this game, and it is a dirty little side note, and it is not happy. And I'm going to call for it to be stamped out with fire. Like, kill it dead right now. So this game was played in London, strangely enough, and something bad rubbed off on the NFL in London.
What's that?
I saw my first dive in the NFL in this game, and I mean absolute dive. Robert Tonyan goes down the sideline. He's hand fighting with the corner.
Oh, where he goes over the top and grabs.
No, he just let his legs go. There is a great end zone corner angle, and Tonyan is looking. This is completely calculated by Tonyan. He sees where the official is, he sees where the defender is, and he goes, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to dive. I'm going to flop. And it's not because he got tripped. It's not even that he tripped on his own feet. He literally just stopped running his legs and fell down. And Jason McCourty says, Tonyan channeling his soccer flop on that PI call, and that's exactly what it was. And that particular move has made international football, soccer, damn near unwatchable, because it happens regularly, because it is rewarded with calls and it gets teams advantages. And it has gutted the competitiveness at the highest levels of that sport because they have allowed it to. It has not been present in the NFL. There have been bad PI calls, non-call PI calls, all that stuff. I have never seen a guy just flat stop running his lower body and go, happens in basketball, happens in soccer, cannot be allowed to happen in the NFL. Do not let this into the NFL. It will gut the games. And if you think you hate the roughing the passer stuff, you are going to hate, and I mean with a burning hellfire passion, guys flopping on routes because they get rewarded for it. The PI call, defensive PI call in the NFL is already OP, and I don't mean offensive pass interference. I mean overpowered. Like, you can get the whole field in one call. It's not like college. You're not getting 15 yards. And if you allow guys to get that with a flop, it changes the game fundamentally. This one thing, guys just going, changes the game. It changed international soccer, and it was because guys got rewarded for it. You cannot reward guys for doing this, period. Like, it is a fundamental change, and it will change the sport that we both love to be more unwatchable, and that is gonna hurt more than you think it is. So whatever you need to do to stamp this one out early and say you will not be rewarded for just giving up your legs and saying, it was too hard to keep running. Don't do it. Keep that competitive aspect.
Well, speaking of completely unwatchable, the Detroit Lions, let's get to 3-up number 3. The Detroit Lions got absolutely spanked by the New England Patriots, and the Patriots in particular are the up part of this 3-up. This was the most complete game, I would say, the Pats have played in a long time. Like maybe in the last 2 seasons entirely, maybe even since Brady left. I think this is the most complete game the Patriots have played, which I know pissed off Lions fans because they wanted nothing more than to rub Matt Patricia's nose in it, and they didn't get to do that. So this is like a war crime for them to lose 29-0 to Matt Patricia. But, I mean, credit where credit is due. The team looked great. The offense was functional. Matt Patricia actually called a pretty good game. He leaned on Ramondre Stevenson to do Ramondre Stevenson things. And I think that it's become clear that he is the best back in that backfield, the most complete back in that backfield. And I really want him to continue out-touching everybody else because he can do that kind of stuff. Like his tackle breaking ability is just, it's one of the best in the league. If you look at like missed tackles forced per carry, like he is one of the best in the league at that. But not only that, they got contributions from a couple other young guys like Bailey Zappi. QB3 on the depth chart, QB1 in your hearts. He played really well. He was efficient. He took care of the ball. Made some good plays in the red zone on the defensive side of the things. Jack Jones in particular, who was, believe it or not, the first the first prospect overall that I watched in the draft cycle last year was Jack Jones, because I talked to Eric and who runs the Shrine Bowl, Eric Galco. And this was, well before the Shrine Bowl. And I was like, who's your best position groups there? I need to start working on guys. And I want to hit the Shrine guys first because that's going to be who I see first. And he's like, definitely DB. Jack Jones is probably the best one here you're going to want to look at. So Jack Jones was the first guy I watched. And I remember putting out a tweet of like, shit, this kid's talented. And then I got through a couple other DBs and I was like, man, Eric was right. The DB group at Shrine is actually pretty damn good. And, so I had an affinity for Jack throughout the process because I thought he had really good feet in terms of like cover technique in general, whether he was in off or in press. I thought he was very, very technically refined. So I'm a big fan of Jack Jones, and I'm happy to see him succeeding. Really talented kid. I think the Patriots definitely got something there.
This is a classic Belichick game. This is the Lions on a tear. We had Lions in 3-up the last week we did the pod a couple weeks ago, averaging 35 plus. Defense has been playing okay, not great, but have had their moments. But the offense has been on an absolute tear. Again, another team buying into a coaching staff that had a year to get their systems in place, get more of their players in place with a second draft, and Dan Campbell is leading the Lions in a way that Lions fans are not used to that team being led, and they're really happy about it. And they come in. The Patriots have been stumbling. They're down to a backup rookie quarterback making his first start, who is a late-round pick. Lions were just licking their chops at this one. Classic Belichick trap game. Comes in. Not only do they just beat the tar out of the Lions, they shut them out. Mm-hmm. Like, here's a team averaging 35 a game. They shut them out. Again, you said it, complete game. The offense looked great. Ramondre Stevenson, I was super happy to see. He's just got such great feet. Everybody looks at him and he's big and he's quick, and people think, oh, he's a battering ram. He's not. He's a dancer. And I don't mean a dancer like dances away from the hole. Dancing is typically a bad term. It's weird. It's a good term for tackles, but a bad term for running backs. He is a dancer. He's got great feet. His feet and his footwork are so exceptional for a guy his size, and you got to see it over and over again on Sunday. Defense came out. Matt Judon is a guy whose name we haven't mentioned a lot this year. We should. He's playing great. Jack came out. Jack I was worried about because his tape was good, but he was really quiet. I wasn't sure about his investment. Turns out he's just a shy guy, and he's tiny. He's literally
he's light.
To this
he's
guy.
Very light.
He's really small. And so I was like, I don't know, his tape looks good, but is he going to hold up? Guess what? Jack Jones is going to hold up. I'll just take the L publicly and say I underrated certain things. He has proved in the NFL not just on Sunday. He played well in camp. There's a lot of buzz about him in camp. He's played well even in the weeks leading up to this. Sunday was a sort of breakout, hey, get to know Jack Jones's name game for him. Couldn't be happier to see it. Nice dude. This is just, it's so Belichick it hurts, right? Not to mention the Patricia aspect and revenge, which Belichick and his, let's call it, recycling coaching tree that comes back to Foxborough loves to get. It was a really good game if you're a Patriots fan. It was a really rough game to swallow if you're a Lions fan, but this is just so Belichick.
You mentioned Judon, by the way. He is tied for 9th in the NFL in pressures right now, so he is having, he's had a lot of great years in his career. By his standards, this might be the best year so far of his career. He's playing his ass off. Also, one more note of the Patriots defense before we move on to 3 down. We actually had some history made in this game because the Lions were obscenely aggressive and went for 6 4th downs. Like, even when the game was close, it was like 6-0 early on. There was a 4th and 9 from the 32 or 33 yard line. They still went for it. And then, of course, Goff got strip sacked and Duggar ran it back. And it could have been 6-3, and they ended up making it 13-0. So they were they were absolutely ridiculously aggressive to the point where even I was like, okay, guys, you can kick every now and then and be okay. But this was the first time in NFL history a defense has held a team to 0 of 6 on 4th down. That has never happened before. The last team, ironically, to be 0 of 5 on 4th down was the Patriots, like 3 decades ago. Obviously, that would never happen in the Tom Brady era. But the Lions tied them, and they decided, you know what, we're going to go for the record. We're going to go for 0 of 6. And they hit it. They hit 0 of 6 in the very last minute of the game. So just an incredible defensive performance by the Patriots. Complete game from start to finish. And for the first time in a while, I think Pats fans have a little something to be happy about. But with that being said, why don't we get to more doom and gloom, our favorite thing about this show. And we're going to get to 3 down. All right, 3 down, number 1. And, there's doom and gloom, actually, but this might even be worse. Jerome Boger, a scourge upon our houses, EJ. This crew, in general, whether it was last year or this year, which only 3 out of the 7 of Jerome Boger's refereeing crew are actually retained from last year, but the problems have still been persisting because of who's actually leading the crew. This is the second week in a row that Boger's crew has arguably ruined a football game with a questionable at best and horrible at worst roughing the passer call. This week they got Grady Jarrett. And they said that, he threw down Tom Brady in a forceful manner. To which I say, isn't that the fucking point of the position? Is to get Tom Brady on the ground in a forceful manner? So they called him for roughing the passer, which kept Tampa on the field, and then they closed out the game. That wasn't even the first time that they kept Tampa on the field on 3rd down. They also had a ticky-tack at best holding on AJ Terrell when he was still inside of 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, and it wasn't even really a hold. He bumped him. No. And people were saying, the roughing the passer was a makeup call for the missed pass interference, which, yeah, there was a missed pass interference. Okay, but that means that there's 2 calls that favored Tampa, and there's 1 call that favored Atlanta or lack of call that favored Atlanta on the entire series, and this was a game-deciding drive. There cannot be an imbalance on a game-deciding drive, and this is now the second week in a row they've done that. Going back to last year, people remember Jerome Boger's crew was benched during the playoffs because they fucked up the Raiders and Bengals game with that inadvertent whistle fiasco. And then you can think back to past years as well, where Jerome Boger's crew has made monumental errors in critical spots in 4th quarters and inserted themselves into games that they should not have been inserted themselves into. This crew has been a problem regardless of who's been working under Boger. They've rotated people in and out of the crew. This crew has been a problem for the NFL for multiple years now. At what point do we cut bait? Because I'm sorry, like I do not feel any sort of motivation to watch any game he is refereeing, because I now go into the game assuming that he's going to fuck it up at some point. And so far I've been proven right on that.
This is like the Santa Claus list, right? The naughty and nice, where he drops the roll and it bounces down and goes down the stairs and out the door because Jerome Boger's crew's mistakes were highlighted to a point where the NFL was forced to act, right? He was bad enough, and under bright enough lights, they had to go, okay, like, people actually bet on these games. We can't do this anymore. Like, you know, many fortunes are determined by wins and losses in the NFL, and Jerome Boger's crew has negatively contributed to those fortunes for multiple years now. That should be enough. This is the second week in a row. The call on Grady Jarrett, yep, Tom Brady got on the ground, but Grady Jarrett actually rolled him across the top of himself. Mm-hmm. Like, he used himself as a cushion, because you can't drive a quarterback's head or shoulder into the ground. You can't do anything. I mean, quarterbacks are well protected, and they should be. We all want to see good quarterback play in the NFL. Nobody wants to go into those week 15, 16, 17 games anymore with, like, ex-backup number 3 and UDFA signed off the street 6 weeks ago. That's just not a key matchup. The NFL knows it. So they go to great lengths to protect quarterbacks. Grady Jarrett went to great lengths to protect Tom Brady. Grabbed him around the waist, didn't hit him, spun him, bounced him off the top of himself, and folded him over. Yeah. Like, that forcefully, sure, Grady Jarrett weighs over 300 pounds. It's going to be forceful, but it was about as unforceful as it gets. My least favorite thing that nobody's going to talk about, because everybody should be focusing on Boger and the hit itself, is as Grady Jarrett went to stand up, Tom Brady tried to kick him.
I saw that too.
Yeah. So Tom Brady sets the record for 100,000 yards, which is amazing, and is petulant while doing it, because he gets up and immediately starts begging for a call, which he gets because he's Tom Brady. I get it. Like, Michael Jordan got his calls. Tom Brady's going to get his. That's the thing. Was it a bad call? Yep. It was a bad call. Did it affect the game? Yep, it did. Was it the first time that Jerome Boger was involved in even recent memory? No. Not even the first time in the last couple of weeks. Forget years or seasons. Not a good thing. I don't know what the NFL is going to do about it. My guess is nothing, because that's what they typically do about it until forced, like last year during the playoffs, where they were like, we could actually determine the Super Bowl winner with a Jerome Boger call.
Yeah.
Ooh, not cool. Let's not make that happen. But that was pretty forceful. The calls were all over the place and really loud. This is going to be less so. I don't think they'll do anything, and that's to the detriment of the league.
Yeah, because the last thing the league wants is for, especially in the playoffs, for like another, Rams-Saints situation where there's like an actual crazy missed call that literally determines who goes to the Super Bowl. Like, it's an impossible situation for the league. I'm not blaming the league, because they have done action with Boger's crew in the past, but like, is there nobody else? Is there
Apparently
nobody else you can hire? Like, because this has been years now of this problem, and there's nobody else you can hire. Really?
Yeah, this is where conspiracy theory starts to be a little bit more realistic. You're like, wow, he's screwed up how many times in how many high-profile games, and they haven't fired him? Why exactly is that?
Who's that ump and
Angel
Hernandez?
That's the one. That's the one that I keep thinking of in this situation. For baseball fans, Angel Hernandez was just like lambasted every week for years. It seemed like, oh, guess who called a strike, over somebody's shoulder, and everybody knew. Like, it wasn't a running joke. It was a running truth. And Boger's getting to that level if he's not already there. And we'll see if the NFL does anything. I, for the sake of the game, hope they do, because I'm with you. I'm like, come on, there's how many thousands of officials in this country that work high-profile games, and you can't find one to elevate? Like,
We'll get back to the show in just a second, but really quick, the job market right now is crazy and there's a lot of competition out there to try to hire the best candidates possible for your business. If you yourself are also a small business owner like we are and you need to hire on some extra help to get you through the holiday rush that is already upon us, LinkedIn Jobs will help you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster than ever before. Every single week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn, so if you're hiring, that is the place you want to be. You can create job postings in just a couple of minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach not just your network, but the entire LinkedIn network of over 800 million people. And you can even use tools like screening questions to try to narrow down and filter your search as much as possible. So if you've been trying to hire someone lately and you checked all the boxes you knew you were supposed to check with good benefits and good pay and work-life balance and everything like that, and you're still just not getting any bites for whatever reason, try posting that same job for free at linkedin.com/bootleg and see what they can do for you. Again, that is linkedin.com/bootleg to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you again to LinkedIn for sponsoring today's show. And with that, let's get back to it.
All right, 3 down, number 2. A tale of two Matts. Matt Ryan and Matt Stafford. Both formerly great players that, at least so far, well, I shouldn't say formerly great. Could still be great. Maybe. Potentially. But so far this year have been ridiculously bad. Matt Ryan, in particular, has been historically bad. He is leading in interception. Well, technically, he's tied with Matt Stafford for leading in interceptions with 7. He has 5 touchdowns, 7 picks, which is terrible. Leading in fumbles with 11, which it's been 5 weeks, and you're at 11 fumbles, and also leading in sacks taken so far at 21, which, again, that's over 4 sacks a game. It's been a mess, just a complete mess from top to bottom. And as frustrated as we are with the Broncos offense, at least there's some things that we think are correctable, like Jerry Jeudy learning to catch the ball properly. And I don't see correctable things here with this Colts offense with the way that Matt Ryan has been playing. He has legitimately been the worst starting quarterback in the league so far this year. And this is the same team that just left Carson Wentz. And Matt Ryan's been even worse. It's almost a hopeless situation.
It's bad. It's really bad. If you're a Colts fan, it's terrible, and it looks like deja vu. We brought in ex-veteran quarterback that was supposed to be savior. They're not. They're bad. We're probably going to move on for them as quickly as we can. That's a terrible record to be replaying as a Colts fan. We didn't believe this was going to happen. For us, there's this huge fall of expectation. Not only were we expecting Matt Ryan to be average, we thought he could be great in this situation. We said so in our offseason preview. We thought he still had a lot left in the tank. He's gone from a lot left in the tank to he looks cooked. Like, because it's not just one thing. We've seen other quarterbacks drop off at certain points in their career with certain pieces, but they could still do other things, right? The deep ball goes typically, especially late in the season. The arm starts to fall off. We saw it with Phillip Rivers. We see it with every great quarterback. At some point, they hit the wall and they can't throw the deep ball anymore, but they still have timing. They still have anticipation. Peyton Manning did the same thing. He knew what was happening pre-snap so he could get the ball out quick enough, and even if it was a shot put, it still got there on the right arc, right? So they compensate. Right? But this isn't one thing. This is pocket presence. This is ball security. This is decision making. This is like all things going from what were still really good levels last year, even with the Falcons, to, like you said, bottom of the league levels. And everybody's been concentrating on Matt Ryan because he moved this year, but the other Matt Stafford, moved last year, obviously had a very successful season, won the freaking Super Bowl. So there's some grace there, but we have known for a long time that Matt Stafford physically is a guy that has played really banged up. I talk about it all the time. He played with broken bones in his back. He's played with his elbow. They did, a lot in camp this year to limit reps, right? And they said it was the same thing they were doing last year, again, to take care of his elbow, to take care of his shoulder. And we all kind of went, oh, okay, well, it worked last year and he won the Super Bowl, so cool, right? And the answer is not cool, right? Because we just talked about how bad Matt Ryan has been, and it is worst in the league. Matt Stafford also has 5 touchdowns, just like Matt Ryan, 7 interceptions, just like Matt Ryan, and has taken 21 sacks, just like Matt Ryan. So this is the Spider-Man meme, quite literally, the two Matts pointing at each other and going, ooh. Sean McVay came out yesterday and said the offense needs to do more to support Matt, not the other way around. The
Which
tone
felt
was,
like a very targeted, like Allen Robinson, unfuck yourself. Like that's what that felt like to me.
It did feel like that a little bit, and it is a very stark turn from just the year before where Matt is going to be here and elevate the offense to now the offense needs to protect and basically insulate Matt from, quite frankly, himself at this point. And offenses, we've talked about it even in this show, this very podcast, this one, offenses are multiple elements that need to work well together. It is a very weird alchemy of coaching and belief and enthusiasm and everybody executing. It is a hard thing to bottle and jar. Right now, the Rams, who have been an offensive juggernaut, right? Look back at Cooper Kupp's season last year, one of the best seasons ever by a wide receiver ever. And now you've got a quarterback, also named Matt, who is bouncing off the bottom of the league in some very important statistical categories. And the Rams are muddling along. They are struggling because of it. Not surprisingly, it's an offensively driven league. There's a thing here where we've been spoiled by guys like Drew Brees. Mm-hmm. Right? Drew Brees went well past what we would consider the normal expiration date on a quarterback and played at a very high level to the very end of his career. And it's happened 2 or 3 times. Brady's the other one, right? Brady is still throwing the deep ball at 40x years old. That's not logical, reasonable. I'm not even sure it's happening in the material plane. I still swear it's a deal with the devil.
Rodgers right? The same way. Rodgers still making,
and Rodgers is there as well. Rodgers is playing, MVP football at a level, at a place in his career, a number of years stacked in his career that we're not used to seeing. We've seen those 3 guys, Brady, Brees, and Rodgers, and we're like, so it just happens when just about every other quarterback in the world falls off somewhere in their mid-30s. Right? 34, 35, 36, you're starting to see for sure. But we've said, no, like Rodgers 40, Brady's 40, like Brees was 40. Like those are the exceptions, and we've taken them as the rule. So here are a couple of guys that have played a lot of very good football. We said at the top of the segment, great players in their own right. Guys that have taken their teams to the Super Bowl, have been MVPs, have like had top statistical years in all of the NFL. They've both taken a bunch of shots. They're both in their mid-30s, right? They're getting towards their late 30s, and they're falling off. Is this the one? This is always is it the one? It's like the running back discussion, except now it's, a few years later in your quarterback. Is this the plateau that you've fallen off of? Is this the slide that you're not going to recover from? Or is this a statistical hiccup that has to do with other factors? And that's the tea leaf reading part of being a GM and a coach that I don't envy at all, because it's really difficult.
We thought that Rodgers hit that wall years ago, which is when they drafted Jordan Love, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh no, I'm fine again, I'm good, I'm Aaron Rodgers.
Bounced.
You never know when the actual crash is until it already happened.
That's right. It reminds me of the old joke, right? How far do you think we're going to make it when the airplane's faltering? All the way to the scene of the crash. But this is not the red flag. This is not the pull them, they're done, they're cooked. This is the yellow/going to orange flag of this could be it. This is when it has happened to a great many very successful quarterbacks. You need to be aware in kind of a different way that this could be the one. Could they bounce back and have a Rodgers-like resurgence? Yes. Both of these guys have the talent to do that. Are they going to be able to? Don't know.
We'll see. Yeah. All right, 3 down, number 3. Let's get to a young quarterback now that's struggling. Trevor Lawrence. And, early on in the year, first few weeks, Trevor Lawrence was making ridiculous throws and doing Trevor Lawrence things. And we're like, finally, this is what we wanted to see. The last couple weeks, the turnovers have once again been an issue. Going back to the Eagles game, he had a very Daniel Jones-ish type day in terms of ball security in the pocket. Forced a whole bunch of fumbles on him. It was, there was a rough pick in the red zone again. It was what we thought at the time uncharacteristically sloppy. And the Jags, if those turnovers didn't happen, the Jags legitimately could have made a run at knocking off the Eagles, but they just couldn't overcome that many fumbles. So we go to the game against the Texans, and I expected the Jags to bounce back and have a much better, more efficient, hopefully less turnover-prone day. And we just didn't get that. The Jags outgained them significantly. More yardage, more yards per play, better on third down, whole bunch of stats that statistically you're like, okay, they probably put up more points. No, they didn't, because they kept stalling out in the red zone, in particular because of some mistakes that Trevor Lawrence was making. Had an absolutely egregious pick in the end zone where he's rolling out on a naked boot and then just throws it to the hand corner, like never even sees him. Just throws it directly to the hand corner, and I'm like, what are you even looking at? And that was inexcusable, which is the second week in a row he's had inexcusable plays like that. There was another almost pick on a fourth down from the Houston 37 where they're like, it's kind of iffy field goal range. Let's see if we can go for it on fourth and, it was like 4th and 2 or something like that. And Houston showed a middle field close look, so they had a single high safety. Looked like, okay, maybe we're going to be cover 3 or maybe cover 1. And then they backed out into cover 2, and Trevor literally threw it to the hook defender, and it bounced off the hook defender's hands. But again, I was like, did you not see the safeties expand and the linebacker carry the middle seam and know that means that this is cover 2 and that I shouldn't throw the bender straight to the hook? Like, were you just not seeing the field and seeing the shallow come wide open underneath that would have moved the chains and more on 4th and short? I almost feel like he just is pre-snap in his head saying, this is the look I'm getting, this is where I'm throwing the ball, come hell or high water. And he keeps either getting picked or getting almost picked because of that. Not to mention the 5 drops that his receivers had, including 2 from Etienne. They had another red zone stall because of a drop and then a holding call and then another incompletion on third down that resulted in a field goal that should have been a touchdown if they could stop making mistakes. So it's not just Lawrence, like his receivers are not helping him out, but Lawrence in particular is doing dumb things and making throws that no human should try to make. And I think eventually he will get it fixed because he's very talented and he's very smart. But man, some of these growing pains that I thought we were over, we are apparently not over at all yet.
If you watch the highlights of this game or even the condensed version of this game, you would have thought the Jags won going away. Because between the 20s, they looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. They looked real good. They look good on offense. They look great on defense, right? They hold the Texans to 13 points. That should be winning football in the NFL these days. Like, if you can do that, and they did it, you should be able to come up with a couple of touchdowns and win the game over the course of the entire game. When they got to the red zone, shit changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were not able to get it done. And I want to put it on the whole scoring offense, not just Trevor. Look, he's a quarterback. His mistakes, not good, not defensible. And they're going to be highlighted because he's the quarterback. When the quarterback wins, team wins, quarterback gets too much credit. Team loses, quarterback gets too much blame. It's on the entire sort of scoring offense or red zone offense. And there have been other coaching and quarterback combinations that have struggled with this, that can put up yardage between the 20s like gangbusters, but when they get in the red zone, which is a different beast, compressed space, things need to happen quicker, they struggle. They are not great red zone schemers or executors. And I think it's too early to say that about the Peterson, Trevor combination, because we're just sort of starting to get our feet wet here in this, but it is an area to look at to say, all right, is this just a hiccup? Or is this a thing that they struggle when things compress and when things are wide open? man, they look pretty good. 286 passing yards, 136 rushing yards. Like, that's a fine game. And the way they move the ball, again, if they didn't have a couple of key turnovers, they would have put up 21 points and won this game going away, really. So it's all about that red zone offense, and it's looked pretty decent through the first month of the season. This week, it didn't look decent. It really derailed the entire thing, and they couldn't overcome it. That's the tough part. They come away with a couple of field goals for the game. Like, you're not going to win hardly any games. Again, their defense did great. 13 points allowed. You'd figure that offense, 13 points allowed,
Blowout.
they win easily.
Yeah.
Right. And instead, not only on a day when they struggled in the red zone, they just couldn't come up with it any other way. Their defense didn't score. The special teams didn't score. Like, they came away with 6 points. You come away with 6 points, you're not going to win anything. So it's not a good look. It's not something to ring alarm bells about yet, but you got to see improvement from certainly the young quarterback in decisions and the whole unit, him, his supporting cast, and the coaching staff in the red zone. It's got to get more efficient. They have to come away with points more often because they're getting there pretty easily. They got to seal the deal.
All right, EJ, let's get away from the depressing topics and get to something a little bit more fun in 3 Fun. Okay, 3 Fun. Number 1, we got to talk about DeMeco Ryans. We've already brought him up a little bit in the show. He's going to be one of the leading head coach candidates in the entire league. Absolutely deserved. Hopefully he gets put in a good situation. I kind of think that Colts would be very intriguing with him because I think the ownership structure there is a patient one that will give DeMeco the time that he deserves to build the program that I think he could build. So DeMeco to the Colts would break my Texans fan heart, but in terms of what's best for him, that'd be awesome. But specifically in terms of his ability as a defensive coordinator, not just as a head coaching candidate, but as a defensive coordinator, he is one of the best in the league, hands down. That Niners defense, despite being banged up, by the way, like they have been, especially in the defensive line, they have been down talent. Al-Shair was hurt. Bosa tweaked his groin. Armstead's been banged up. Who's the kid they took from South Carolina? Kid we saw at the Senior Bowl, who's crazy gifted, who has like a 6-pack and he's 300 pounds.
Oh,
Javon
Kinlaw.
Javon Kinlaw's been hurt. So, like, they're down, like, 3 defensive linemen. And yet, this Niners defense, throughout the entire season, has only given up 52 points. They have scored 14 points by themselves. So, net points allowed, if you look at that, like, what are you giving up versus what have you scored? Net points allowed is 38 on the season. An average of 7.6 net points per game. That is stupid. That is an absolutely stupid stat in the modern NFL to have. I am almost speechless with how good this defense has been, even despite their injuries. They are extremely well coached. They're extremely disciplined. Ryans is getting the best out of his guys. Like Mosley, unfortunately he got hurt as well. Mosley's played his best football of his career. Like the corners when I was at training camp, they were, again, even back to training camp, they were banged up when I was there at camp, but like Charvarius and everything in practice, like they just look so fucking good on the back end. Not to mention Fred Warner is, even by Fred Warner standards, is having his best year so far. He's an absolute freak of nature. I'm just absolutely in awe that despite all the injuries, they are still playing like the best defense in the league. And if that is not a reflection on how good of a coach DeMeco Ryans is, I don't know what else is.
This is where coaching comes in. This is it. And other teams, other fan bases, myself included, will make excuses for, oh, this guy's missing. Oh, this guy's hurt. He hasn't been available. Or this, bad break or the weather or whatever else. Great coaching staffs, not just good ones, great coaching staffs are going to take the guys they have, whoever they are, and they're going to get the most out of them. And right now, D'Amico Ryans is getting the most out of everybody on that defense. Dre Greenlaw, who's a guy that I loved coming out in the draft, is a great person, has a great story. I thought he would be a contributor. He's playing at a high level next to Warner as a starter, right? The defensive line, they have invested a ton of talent there, and they are all playing at a really high level. Linebackers we just talked about. Secondary, Talanoa Hufanga, guy that I really liked coming out of USC, but thought had limitations. He's playing better than I ever thought he could. He's playing at a level where people are actually starting to mention his name with Troy Polamalu, another USC safety. That's how you know you have a great coaching staff. Every guy at every level is having his best season, playing his best ball. We didn't know he could do this well. The free agent edition, Charvarius Ward, has been pretty much locked down. He has been beating guys up on the corner just like they wanted him to. He has looked like every bit the sort of lock and key addition that many people said he would be when he got there. That's because of D'Amico Ryans and his coaching staff doing a great job, a historic job in what is a league that is completely tilted towards offense in terms of investment, in terms of calls, in terms of everything else. The league doesn't want to see 9-6 football games. They want to see 45-38 football games. And D'Amico Ryans is that's cool.
They ain't getting to 38.
You can want what you want, but I'm not going to give it to you. My guys are not going to give it to you. We're going to make you work for every point. You're going to get 6 or 7 on average per week. That is a ridiculously good coaching job. It is a reason that Ryans is going to get even more head coaching opportunities. He had one last season. He's on record as saying he's actually kind of glad he didn't get it. He wanted to have the experience to interview, but he also said, I kind of, in the back of my head, didn't want them to say yes, so I had another year to get my affairs completely in order, so I was really ready for the first one I took. This is a great coach. We were excited when he was elevated to defensive coordinator. We thought that he would do good things. We've got receipts if you want to go back and dig through the podcast. We thought this was great. We both loved him as a player. We loved him as a coordinator. We thought, let's see if he can do, as a position coach, let's see if he can do that as a coordinator. And some guys can't. Some guys are just better position coaches. Some guys are great coordinators, but not great head coaches. There's a step up in responsibility every time. And he has stepped up every time and exceeded the mandate of whatever it is that he's doing. It's why I believe he's going to be a great head coach and very soon in the NFL.
3 fun, number 2. Let's talk about the Bills' offense because, my God, I could have put them in 3 up, but this was not a fair fight. It was not a fair fight. You look at this passing game and how it's structured. This was a nightmare matchup for the Steelers defense. And I'll tell you why. We kind of alluded to it when we did the Steelers-Browns stream a few weeks ago, where I was talking about how predictable the Steelers defense was and how they just try to out-execute people. They do not – it's a no-frills defense. We are going to play cover 3 and cover 1 on first and third down. In particular, cover 1 on third down is it's like a 55% call or something like that. They play a lot of cover 1 and cover 3 at a 67 to 70% clip on early downs. They do what they're going to do. And then they will play cover 2, but it's mostly on second down because they like to play single high structures to drop a body down in the box, get a good run stop on first down, put you at 2nd and 8, and then they're going to play cover 2. So even though cover 2 has had a lot of success against the Bills, if they know you're going to call cover 2 and they know that you're going to show cover 2 before the snap, you're not going to run it like Miami where they're going to show 0 and then run Javon Holland 3 counties over to get back to his deep half on the other side of the field. Miami was able to have success with cover 2 because they didn't show they were going to be in cover 2. The Steelers are we're the Steelers. We're going to out-execute you. It doesn't matter that you don't know what we're in. We like our guys. We're going to go out there and match up. No. You're not matching up against the Bills. Gabe Davis is better than you. Stephon Diggs is better than you. Khalil Shakir, he's a rookie, but he's probably better than you. Like, you cannot match up with all those receivers and arguably the best super weapon in the entire NFL, which is Josh Allen. Because it doesn't matter if you got Minka on Gabe, hip to hip, 60 yards down the field. He's going to throw a bomb and score from midfield, or actually beyond midfield. He threw for over 300 yards in the first half because the Steelers have this attitude of, we don't need to deceive you, we have the talent. And I'm sorry, against a team like Buffalo, no you don't. So it was a horrible game plan that was reflective of all their other game plans. Like, if you go back and watch that Steelers-Browns stream, we were literally calling out the defense before the play because their tendencies are that rigid, where it's like, okay, 3-yard gain on first down, here comes cover 2, and then here comes cover 2 again, and cover 2 again, and then they started working, little pivot routes off David Njoku when he was matched up one-on-one, and Browns marched down the field. Like, it's fucking easy. Like, I'm an idiot, and I knew what they were going to run. And you're gonna do that against Josh Allen, who's a lot smarter than me? Like, regardless, what was fun about this game was Josh Allen making impossible throws and Gabe Davis setting records and all that kind of stuff, and Khalil Shakir having his debut. What was not fun about it was that the Steelers did nothing to adjust. And quite frankly, I don't think they're going to adjust next week either. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're going to keep losing because of it.
The Bills are set to puree right now on the blender. They're gonna beat up just about everybody and turn them into a pulp. When you get a team like the Steelers that just rigidly will not adjust, it's gonna be worse. Like, it was not gonna be fair. Like you said, if this game was 21-3 and the Bills sort of went going away, I would have been like, But instead, just lit the fuse and went off. Record-setting day, Josh doing Josh things that we've talked about, week after week. This is not a new development. This is not like the Jets breaking out. This is just the Bills continuing to march over the rest of the league. It's, bad defenses are going to get swept aside in the first quarter or two. Good defenses might hang until, middle of the third, and then still get swept aside, because when the Bills are firing right now, nobody has a setup. Like, is there going to be a game later in the season where someone confuses them? Probably, right? They're going to throw some exotic rotations at him, do some things that maybe Josh hasn't seen, but that list is starting to get pretty short. He's been around a while now. This is not a year-and-a-half quarterback, right? He's seen most of, he plays Belichick twice a year. He's seen most of what defenses are going to try and throw at him. But when a team like the Steelers lines up and just goes, nah, we're just going to put Mink out there, do what you can do, Josh is like, okay, I'll do what I can do. This is what I can do. What can he do? And Minka is playing at the highest level in the NFL right now. He is probably the best free safety in the NFL right now. If you look at his overall statistical season, he is easily one of the top 3, if not the top guy. Josh says, don't care particularly. That's fine. He can do what he's going to do. I'm going to do what I can do, because I am the best going right now at challenging people, at using the weapons I have. And the rest of the Bills, not just the offense, the defense is, coming back a little bit from injury and playing at an extremely high level like they have been all season. It's not fair. You said it at the top. It's not a fair fight. And the Bills right now, as long as they don't beat themselves, it's not really a fair fight for anybody else. But the weird related stat of the year, not just of the week. So Pittsburgh, great wide receiving core, the best team at drafting wide receivers in the NFL right now.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty inarguable.
Yeah.
No Pittsburgh wide receiver has found the end zone through 5 games.
Is that true?
Is that true?
Really? So who's scored for them?
Yeah.
At all?
Freiermuth, Najee. We can double check it, but I'm pretty sure.
Really? Wow. Hold on. Wow, you're right. It's literally, they have 2 receiving touchdowns in 5 games, and it's one for Freiermuth and one for Najee. Wow. Man, I did not realize it was that gross. Like, and which, by the way, is just as much a reflection on Matt Canada as it is on Mitch Trubisky and even Kenny Pickett. Like, Kenny Pickett did cap off a couple red zone drives in the previous week with rushing touchdowns. Like, there has been a little bit of hijinks there in the red zone, but God, I have been very frustrated.
Pickett, Claypool, just keep going. Like, they've got the horses. I don't care if it's Trubisky and Pickett and even Mason Rudolph. Like, come on. You can't tell me that wide receiving core, which is one of the deepest and scariest in the NFL, doesn't touch the end zone for over a month.
Also, I will say that stat might have been different today if Deontay just one time could get both of his feet in bounds. Like, his almost highlight reel, his highlight reel of catches that didn't count this year is as good as any highlight reel you will ever see. Yeah. But just that 2 inches of toe on the white has ruined, like, literally multiple touchdowns at this point, but also some crazy ass big chunks down the sideline. Like, there was like 3 alone in yesterday's game where I'm like, God, if you were in college, you'd be the best in the nation.
It's true, but the NFL is a fickle beast, and we've seen this previously. Julio Jones, right, for whole seasons where it's like, and Julio Jones has not caught a touchdown, and
2,000 yards and 3 scores,
and you're like, that can't be right, and it is, and this is just, that's why it goes in 3 fun.
Yeah. All right, 3 fun number 3. We have some multi-role players that had pretty interesting weeks in week 5. Taysom Hill, the patron saint of multi-role players. This was like Sean Payton's wet dream, like seeing Taysom Hill go off. Honestly, the fact he's still on the roster is a success for Sean Payton, but the fact that not only is he on the roster and getting playing time, but he had 4 touchdowns in this game and arguably powered them for the win all by himself, had 3 rushing and a passing TD. This was everything that they hoped that he would be able to do for them. Will we ever see it again? Probably not.
No, but that Peyton's at home holding his beer, pointing at the TV like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like, hey, that's why I paid him. That right there, that's why I paid him.
Yeah, he earned his contract at least for this 1 week, but yeah, it was fun to see him kind of go off and have the type of day that the Saints envisioned for him when they kept giving him millions of free dollars year after year. And then we had a couple tight ends that decided to turn into running backs for the week. Daniel Bellinger, they actually ran a Philly special with him, and they covered it up well because nobody's tricked by Philly special anymore, and it's always going to get covered up well. And so he decided, I'm going to improvise and just ticketed myself on the run. And so he did that, was the difference in the game there. And then Durham Smythe for the Dolphins also snuck one in on the Jets defense from Wildcat, channeling his inner Chiefs energy, which, by the way, once that happened in that Chiefs game in primetime, you just knew every other team was going to try it at some point, because every time the Chiefs break out anything new within the 5-yard line, everybody else is going to try it. Case in point, the shovel pass that we talked about at the top of the show. Kansas City's done that more than anybody else in the last few years, and everybody else keeps trying to do it as well as them. And guess what? You can't, because you're not the Chiefs. You don't have Travis Kelce.
I wasn't going to bring you back to your shovel pass madness, but it was fun to see Durham Smythe sneak in there at the last second in between, the quarterback who was in shotgun, and just basically grab it and kind of plow off tackle to the right.
Yeah.
Like, nah. So always fun to see players, when we say multi-role, it's players doing things beyond what is normally done with them in the NFL. It's cool. It expands rosters. It expands playbooks. It expands what defenses need to prepare for. Can be the difference in games. There were, again, nail-biter games this week and blowouts. Wasn't going to make a difference in a blowout, but if you're talking about many of these games that were 3 to 7 points going into the fourth quarter, and you get some crazy ass Wildcat touchdown or busted Philly special where the guy just runs it in, okay, like, you can walk away with a W, and at the end of the year that's a big deal in the NFL. So we threw it in 3 fun. Look, we just like to see guys celebrating and having a good time playing football, and occasionally that happens at the NFL level.
We are smack in the middle of fall now, which is obviously our busy season and probably a lot of your busy seasons too. But just because we're all busy doesn't mean that we still don't want to cook good food at home with fresh ingredients. And that's where HelloFresh comes in because they deliver all of these ingredients right to your door. The produce was picked less than a week ago, so it's as fresh as possible by the time it gets to you. Everything is all pre-portioned out, so there's no food waste, and it's even cheaper than if you bought the same stuff at a grocery store. But if you've listened to the show for a while, you probably know that already. What I want to emphasize today, though, especially for people watching on video right now and not on audio, is just how freaking good the food is. I mean, just look at this stuff. It's delicious. We made the pork taquitos 2 nights ago, and they were ridiculous. And it only took like 20 minutes to make. Every HelloFresh meal I've ever had has been legitimately really tasty. So me and my wife just keep the recipe card so that we can remake these meals later whenever we feel like it. Kind of like we're building a cookbook as we go over time. So if you want to try HelloFresh for yourself as well, for no other reason than it's just good food, you can go to HelloFresh.com and use promo code BOOTLEG65, and that'll give you 65% off your order plus free shipping. Again, that is HelloFresh.com, promo code BOOTLEG65 for a 65% discount and free shipping on your order. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's show, and with that, let's get back to it.
All right, let's get to my favorite segment, and I'm sure many of your favorite segments as well, the Bootleg Shot of the Week. DJ, Shot of the Week. We're going to find out what happens when Reposado fights with Mucinex in my stomach. Surely this will go well.
I don't want that visual. That's not great.
Last week's winner, which is really the winner from 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
We didn't get to do a show last week. L'Jarius Sneed absolutely supermaning out to sack Matt Ryan to force a fumble. Just a hilarious sack. The visual of it was absolutely hilarious. And also, L'Jarius Sneed has been a pretty effective pass rusher for the Chiefs overall this season coming off the edge. Like, he's not the only... Matt Ryan's not the only guy he's done that to. So, toast to you, L'Jarius
Speaking
Sneed.
of multi-role players, good job, L'Jarius. And sorry to pile on Matt Ryan this week, but... Here's to you two.
Ooh, you know what? That actually cleared up my throat.
I was going to say, you feeling better?
Oddly, yes.
Wouldn't be the first time that alcohol's been medicinal. Not even on this podcast.
So congrats to you, L'Jarius. We have 6 more nominees this week, so I'm sure the vote's going to be an absolute war zone down in the comments. This is going to be in a pinned comment down below, so if you have your favorite, vote down there. Nominee number 1, which in my opinion should be the heavy favorite, which is why you put it number 1, Dameon Pierce, with the angriest of all angry runs you'll ever see, running through quite literally half the Jaguars' defense in the red zone. Got very close to finishing this thing for a touchdown, but very few times will you ever see a running back leave a actual wake of bodies in their path. This is one of those times. Just an immensely satisfying physical run that made Florida fans make Dan Mullen trend on Twitter for like the 3rd time in the last 4 weeks. Every time Dameon Pierce does anything, I know it happened because Dan Mullen is trending.
That's right. I'm going to go down my Pierce rabbit hole, even though it's shot of the week, for just a second. So, Pierce, 17 missed tackles forced on runs versus the Jaguars. Not for the entire season. 17 would be a good number for the season. No, for the game. That is the most PFF has ever recorded in a game. Not for a rookie, not for ever. Okay, so that made me think, let's go back, because I said, and we might get creative and pull up the quote here, when he got drafted, I said Dameon Pierce would be a top 10 running back within 2 years in the NFL. And a lot of people were like, whoa, EJ, like, I know you like him, but come on now. All right, so let's just take let's call it quarter poll look at Dameon Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
Among rookies, so Dameon Pierce has 413 rushing yards, 359 rushing yards after contact. Think about that for a second. And 33 missed tackles forced. So among rookies, that's first. Not really surprising there.
Not even close either.
He is easily the best rookie running back. So let's just look at overall. Let's crank the degree of difficulty up a little bit here and say for everybody in the NFL, where does Dameon Pierce rank? So 413 rushing yards puts him at 4th overall in the league. 359 rushing yards after contact, 3rd overall. Guys in front of him, some guy named Nick Chubb and Saquon Barkley. Pretty rarefied air in terms of company. And 33 forced missed tackles. He is 2nd overall, only to Chubb, but he's done it in 86 carries, whereas Chubb's had 98. So we're talking about the best running back in the NFL, Nick Chubb. Saquon Barkley is back. We have talked about that this year. Dameon Pierce is right there nipping at their heels after 5 games. This is not a drill. Dameon Pierce is the real freaking deal.
And he didn't even really get to play in week 1 because he was kind of nursing an injury and the staff wanted to be conservative because they knew what he was and they didn't want to hurt him anymore and hinder his ability to come back and be 100%. So as soon as he was like all the way healthy and they were able to put their foot on the gas, like he literally carried them to victory. Like in this game, they would not win without Dameon Pierce.
No.
So he's all that and a bag of chips, a true 3-down back, good receiver, great pass protector, physical runner, super bursty. He's everything. He's just everything. And the fact that he went, I think it was the 4th round, just continues to embarrass front offices everywhere because, man, he's a special back. Nominee number 2 for shot of the week, Fournette. Also doing Fournette things, laying out 3 Falcons on a little rumble in the 3rd quarter. Troy Anderson, I think I saw 44 was the first that came in and got posterized by Fournette, and then he added 2 on after that.
Anderson's going to have nightmares because not only was he, the first guy to get dumped on this particular little rumble, Fournette got him later too. So we're going from one end of the spectrum to the other on running backs here, from the very fresh to the well-weathered. And Fournette got Anderson again later and absolutely just shoved him down with a forearm and kept going. Anderson's going to see Fournette in his nightmares for a little while.
Nominee number 3, George Pickens, who I think is probably the most nominated receiver we've ever had, and we're only 5 weeks into his career, literally running over Dane Jackson on his release. It was a 3rd down play. Didn't get targeted, but his release has no subtlety to it sometimes. If somebody lines up in press and you weigh less than 200 pounds, he's just going to fucking push you over because he's George Pickens and he can. It's like comical at this point how good he is at that. And he loves doing it too.
It's the signature release, right? George Pickens, he did this at Georgia. This is not a new surprise or a wrinkle that the NFL coaching staff has thrown at him. Pickens will wait until you basically come sort of neutral in press, right? That you're not firing out and trying to get a hand on him. You're playing press in the sense that you're in front of him, but you're not engaging him physically. First time he sees it, he is going to double hand fire into your collarbones and literally just knock your ass over. And he's really good at it. There are multiple highlights of him at Georgia just decking SEC corners. So this is not a new thing, but it's pretty cool that it carries over to the NFL level. Sorry, Dane, we love you. You were literally the first player that we ever interviewed together. Oh, yeah. Hopefully it doesn't happen twice because the first time was pretty rough looking.
Nominee number 4 is one of my favorites, Quinnen Williams, on a recovery, stiff-arming Tyreek Hill back into Narnia. Just a hilarious play. When you look at like the size difference between, somebody who's like 6'4", 315, and Tyreek who's, 5'7" on his best day. And it almost wasn't even like a vicious stiff arm. He just put his arm out and Tyreek went flying.
He little brothered him.
So funny. It was so funny. Weight classes exist for a reason, folks. That's why. Number 5, Cam Dantzler actually got stiff-armed himself in a real bad way by Amir Smith-Marset, but that's not the shot of the week. Got back up in the same play. ISM was working his way down the field. Bears were driving, trying to win the game because the Bears offense came alive in the second half. Like this was the play of the game. Dantzler got stiff-armed, got back up, chased down Smith-Marset from behind, and then stripped the ball out, yanked it away, ran down the sideline, got down, game over. So I wanted to nominate this one because not only did he get stiff-armed, but he came back and won the rep in the end, didn't give up, made a play, got the W for his team. That was quite literally a game-winning play by Dantzler, and I think it deserved to be highlighted.
Yeah, did you see what Justin said about it?
No.
I love this. This is, you can say a lot of bad things, and we have said plenty of constructive criticism about Justin Fields this year. Justin Fields at the podium got asked about this play. And he said, yeah, look, it's unfortunate. I know he's hurting. He's a young guy. He's got to learn from it. I think he can make plays in this league, and it's our job to support him and bring him back to that level. Basically, it's paraphrasing. It's not an exact quote, but that's how he handled it as the quarterback that got denied a chance by that play to, take a shot at the end of the game. There are plenty of other things that happened in the first half that we won't talk about, but it's real class from your quarterback, from your second-year quarterback, standing up the podium and saying, hey, it's bad news, but he's a talented guy. He's going to be a benefit to us, and it's our job to rally around him and make sure he gets those chances. I was like, done, solid, couldn't have been better, put a finer point on it. I don't think you could do it. Like, great job, Justin.
And also Dantzler, too, who has had his fair share of constructive criticism-worthy moments on this show. Like, Dantzler he's had difficulties in his young career, but that play, I think, defines his career in the sense that he will literally get knocked down, but he'll get back up, he'll keep fighting, and he'll just keep trying to help his team win games. So I love that for Dantzler. Again, I have been as big a critic of him as anybody.
I was going to say, and some of us have wavered in our Dantzler support.
Some of us. But I love that for him. It was a great moment for him, and I don't know if he got the game ball, but I think he should have because he literally won the game for them. And then our sixth and final nominee, Raekwon McMillan. We talked about the fourth down stops for New England and how they became the first defense ever to stop an offense 6 times on fourth down. Raekwon McMillan put a capper on that in the fourth quarter. 9:30 left, 4th and 1, shot right through the line, got a TFL on what should have been honestly an easy conversion. Like 4th and 1, you're lining up under center and let's just mash these guys and run the ball. Raekwon McMillan absolutely shot out of a cannon, made the play. Great hit, great tackle, but also just the situation of it, of like, hey, this defense is doing something historic, and he was a big reason for why they're able to accomplish that historic feat. Just a great moment for him too.
And we coined the phrase linebackery things this summer. I love linebackers doing linebackery things, and Raekwon McMillan, this is a linebackery thing. Like, if you go back to like what is a linebacker's purpose, right? It is to stop running backs, and he came through. Very solid shot. It was one you could hear. You could hear the ooze on the sideline when you hear that crack of the pads. This was one of those hits. Very good hit. Situation just adds to it, but this is Raekwon McMillan doing linebackery things. Make no mistake.
All right, let's get to our last segment. Week. God, I can't talk anymore.
Week?
Blame it on the tequila.
Okay.
Week 6 watch list. EJ, take us through the games that we are looking forward to the most.
Bills Chiefs. Enough said. We talked about this game in the summer as a game we were hoping to get out to in Kansas City. This is a rematch of the game that literally shook the NFL world last year. General managers looked at the game between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes last year and thought, oh my God, what can we do if we can't do that? So we get to see the rematch. Should be awesome. Both teams pretty healthy. Both teams playing well. Obvious top of the watch list. Cowboys, Eagles. There's some intrigue here. Will Dak come back? Cooper Rush has been playing really well. We talked up the Eagles on our last podcast. They're playing extremely well. I would say the class of the NFC right now. Gonna be probably more fun even than we thought it was gonna be at the beginning of the season. So that one's on the list. And then Jets, Packers. Like you said, you alluded to this one earlier in the pod. Packers are a little more vulnerable than they have been, and the Jets are, quite frankly, surging. They do have to go into Lambeau, traditionally really tough place to play. But I think if you told me you were circling Jets, Packers in week 6 before the season, I would have been like, why? We know what's going to happen there. And now we don't know what's going to happen. So it's going on the watch list. I want to see if the Jets can continue this momentum, if the Packers sort of continue their slide, or if LaFleur says, no. The funny thing is both LaFleurs are involved in this game on different sides of the ball. Both on offense. Yeah, this is the LaFleur Bowl, which is going to be fun.
And Saleh, who's like best friends with them, like we're best man in the wedding.
These are two very intertwined coaching staffs and two teams kind of on different trajectories that are somewhat meeting in the middle, and we didn't predict that, so it's a fascinating game to watch. The bonus is I'm oddly fascinated by Ravens-Giants.
Wink revenge game.
That's right. There's wink revenge in there. There's Dable going, hey, I got a running quarterback too. He's not like you, but I'm doing some cool things with him. Want to see? So Ravens-Giants is going to be an interesting watch. It's my bonus of the week.
Saquon versus Patrick Queen in space, though. Ugh.
Well, if you're a Giants fan, you're looking forward to that mightily.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Lots of great games in Week 6. I think I will be at the Monday night game between the Chargers and the Broncos. My buddy works for the Chargers, and I asked him if he wanted to go. So I think we're gonna go, and I'm working on a Russ film room right now, so I think I'm going to structure it the same way I did when I was in Miami, where I'm going to show everything that's gone wrong leading up to this point, and then we're going to go to the game, we're going to watch the game, and then assuming things are still going wrong on Monday night, we'll talk about if anything changed in that game, or if things go right, maybe we'll talk about what changed. But that should be like a nice little 2-part film room. I also think I'm going to work on a film room specifically on that stupid shovel option play that only 2 teams, in my opinion, are allowed to run now, and that's KC and Baltimore. They're the only ones that make it work, so they're the only ones that can run it. What do you got going on Bears over Bears this week?
Bears over Bears will be picking another player from all 22 and watching them completely throughout the game. This is JB and I giving our opinions on one player each. I got to say, last week, I got to give it up to JB. He did a fascinating breakdown on Trenton Gill, who is the Bears punter. I know. You should go back and watch it. I'm serious.
What?
He said he was going to do the punter, and I was like, whatever, man. Like, that's yours. I'm gonna do somebody else. He held my attention for a solid 10 minutes with a punter breakdown. He had visuals. I got to tell you, I got to give credit. Props where props are due. He made punting fascinating and interesting, and he taught me things about punting I didn't know, which it was a great job. So may this week be equally as riveting with no punters. And then we'll be back Thursday night, of course. Come hang out with us. Tail the prize pick slip if you want to. If not, just have a drink, chill out, watch some football with your friends Thursday night. We had over 500 concurrent viewers for the absolute snore fest that was last week. I can't wait for this week. Yes, I know it's Bears Commanders. Come for the frivolity. That's right.
That's why this exists, EJ. Actually, no, we're doing all of it.
All of it, including the big bottle, you mean?
All of it. Rum, whiskey, tequila, all of it. My hands are prepared.
As we have Bears takes on this general podcast, come hang out with us on Thursday Night Bootleg. Bears will be playing. I was on the Irish Bears show yesterday for a recap of the Vikings game. Turns out all 3 of those lads are going to Chicago for the game, for the Thursday night game. They're going to be there. So if you're a Bears fan, you're in Chicago, you want to look up the Irish Bears podcast, folks. They will be hanging out this week. They're pretty friendly. Go up, say hi. They will not bite your head off. And quick teaser. Next week, this show will have a new segment, and it is a listener-suggested segment, and it's awesome, so come check it out.
We will?
We will.
Oh, I didn't know about this. But
I
okay.
know. That's the best. It's even better than when I give you like a quiz question you don't know the answer to. No, listeners suggested a new segment for the show next week. It's classic. We're going to modify it. We're going to put a little bootleg twist on it. It's going to be fun.
Okay, I'm excited to find out what that is.
You should be.
All right, thank you to our executive producers, Marat, Consti, Caden, Andrew, and now introducing Taylor. Thank you to all 5 of you. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. Massive you guys are our rock. So thank you to all 5 of you. You guys are incredible. We'll be back on Thursday, trying to do our best with Bears Commanders. Show up for that if you want some company for it. And then we'll be back for our Week 6 recap talking ideally about all these great games on our watch list next Tuesday. So thank you for sticking with us, however you happen to be consuming the show. We'll see you very soon, and until then, later.
Take care.